There's room right here. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna level with you. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure for me to be here. My name is Nika Comet. I am. Let me make sure that I can see everybody. I am a singer for a band called Chase the Comet. I have a BA in linguistics. I speak 4 languages, and I am an immigrant from Russia. So today I am invited to speak with you about, well, to empower women, right? It's March, so Women's Empowerment Month. And I would love to focus on the balance between the feminine and masculine. And since you guys came here, I guess something interested you, and there's maybe some questions, or there's maybe a point of opinion that you wanted to share, or anything, that made you feel like you wanted to come here. I'll try to address that. Yeah. You want to say something? No? Okay. So yeah, feel free to share any of those opinions. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to share my experience and some of the insights that I was able to obtain during my life path that apparently is very versatile, as I've seen many things. I've traveled many countries, and I come from a different culture myself. So let's start. I was born in the USSR, the Soviet Union. You guys know what that is? You heard about it? All right. So basically, it is a very patriarchal culture where any identity or any difference from other people was not just not encouraged, but suppressed, because as you probably know, it is very important for human beings to belong, to be a part of the tribe, of the community, of the herd. So if you're different in any way, it is not safe. And especially in the environment where I was born and later grew up, because I was born in 1989. And so the Soviet Union collapsed. I don't know if you guys heard about that. It was a big country consisting of different nationalities, different even races. And when it collapsed, a lot of those countries received independence, which was great for them. And we can see the consequences of that today when Russia decided to invade Ukraine, because Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. So, some older people still think that it's the way it's supposed to be, right? Which we don't agree with. That's why we're here. And so in that country, in that culture, women were perceived as functions, right? And it was kind of, we can see the traces of that today, both in the modern society where we live in America sometimes, and in the culture where I grew up, it was even more like that. So a woman has to listen to her man. She has to be at home, take care of him like a baby. She has to be a housewife. If she's not a housewife, then, she's not treated equally at the workplace, and all that. And the problem and the conflict for me was that I was born in an artistic family. So my parents were both actors by education, and my mom was severely affected by the idea that you can achieve success while being an actress through connections, meaning you have to have sex with someone to get something. So she didn't want to do that, and that was her conflict. And as a child, as a girl growing up, I was always fed with that truth, like, as a girl, you have to be this. So, ooh, you can't climb trees like a boy because that's what boys do. As a girl, you have to be soft and sweet, and you can't say things to your mom. Like, you have to be always very agreeable and nice, right? And that's what was pushed upon me as a stereotype, right? And sometimes, I don't know, has any of you ladies faced something like that in your families when you grew up, like that a girl has to be a certain way, look a certain way, behave a certain way, right? And in me, it always provoked the feeling of resistance. So I don't know if it's just me as a person like that. When I'm told that something has to be a certain way, I'm like, no, I don't agree to this. Like, I have to check the other way. So I was kind of like unconsciously provoking my mom. I would burp sometimes or sit like this, and my mom would always like be triggered by me. Like, no, you can't sit like this. You have to hold your spine. You have to eat like that, elbows off the table. And she was always obsessed with like, you're a child of the aristocratic family. You have to behave a certain way. You have to learn to eat with a fork and knife, right? Because when along the way you're taken into the restaurant and you don't know how to use all those utensils, it's going to be so shameful. So everything was about shame. And that's another way to control children and then later teenagers, right? We are made think that whenever we do something wrong or whenever we don't know something, that someone's going to look at us and be like, ew, what is that? Like, what is wrong with that person? When in fact, we know it's not like that, right? It's okay to say like, ooh, I've never used so many utensils, or I don't know how to eat with a fork and knife, right? And there's nothing shameful in it, right? So I feel like a lot of boys, and I learned about it later, were also subjected to a lot of stereotypes like, oh, like a man shouldn't cry, right? You guys have ever experienced that? Yeah, like you should be tough. You shouldn't cry. You should take care of your little brothers and sisters. You should take care of your mother. You're like 5, right? And you're already told what you should be doing and be responsible for that. And of course, our parents never meant to hurt us, right? They just did what they could. But the thing is, all in all, both girls and boys, we grew up limited by these stereotypes of what a man or a woman should be, right? Or a girl or a boy should be doing or not be doing. And I think for me, it created this desire to push these stereotypes and prove that as a girl, I can be as good as boys. I can climb trees, I can ride horses, I can even fight. And moreover, since I feel like it was also, maybe not in my family, but in a lot of families, and did you guys see those TikTok videos where like there's a gender reveal party and dads know it's a girl and they throw a tantrum? Like nowadays. And I'm like, seriously, is this still like relevant? Is this what people still do? Because I remember that I read somewhere that in China, right, when they saw it was a girl, they would like throw her away or something like that, that they would always only appreciate the boy being born in a family, right? So there was always that, what is it called? Like dissatisfaction and not acceptance of the fact that it's a girl, right? And so I always felt inferior. Is that the right word? I think it is, right? So like I felt like boys were for some reason better than me, and deep within me, I said, I did not agree to this. I'm going to prove you all wrong. And there was a lot of anger in it, and there was a lot of resilience, and there was a lot of this feeling of injustice. And I put this into my life growing up in Russia, where my mom was always like, she admired me for being like my dad, but at the same time, she would also put me down for not being girlish enough, right? I switched it off. I swear to God, I switched it off. Anyway, so the thing is, why I'm telling you this, I want you guys to see in a very short period of time how the environment that you grew up in, right, both in general, the country, right, the society, and the family can affect you, which you probably already know it does, right? But the thing is, sometimes we think it's part of us, and we think it's our character. And partially it is, but it also the conditioning. Yeah, can you guys see where I'm going with this? So that conditioning kind of doesn't allow us to actually be true to ourselves, because it formed us in a certain way, and it will still always be part of our character, right? So sometimes when I need to turn on the guy, I'm going to do that. And I can do it a little more consciously nowadays and be like, okay, so now I'm going into my male energy, right? And people are going to see me differently, and they're going to treat me differently. Rather than when I'm like, I don't need to turn it on right now because I'm safe and I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. And that means I can be relaxed and I can be in my feminine energy, right? So generally, the insight that I want you guys to get from this, and this is not just for the relationships between men and women. This is for the energies that exist within us that make us a person that we are, right? For every one of us, we have this certain balance, right? And sometimes the male energy, or the yin energy, if you want to call it, it goes up when we need to do something, right? Let's say you have a project, and so you're going to put your yin energy into this, right? Because you have to get stuff done, right? So it's the energy of the action, right? And then sometimes you need to relax and just accept things for what they are. And that means you're in your yang energy, in your feminine energy. And that works for both men and women, right? And also, so this is my husband, by the way, Sasha. He plays guitar for my band, and we're going to play for you guys later tonight. So that's why he's with me. So we started dating very early. We were 18 years old when we started dating. And we had already played in a band for a few years. And it was really hard for us to really understand and find that balance between each other, because he was naturally more passive and accepting of things, right? But that doesn't make him a woman, right? It just makes him his identity was like this, and we thought it was his identity. And I was more like, let's get it done, come on. And I'm also an Aries, so I was always that person who would like organize things, you know, and everybody was like, oh my God, you're a strong, independent woman, all that. And some guys who didn't really agree with that, they would even tell me like, what are you, a lesbian? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just can't stand for myself, you know? And I was always met with this kind of like condescendence, is that a word? Yes. With, from these like toxic masculine guys, because they would think a woman should be different. They should be a certain way. And I learned to play that role too, because that made me feel safe. So what I learned to put different masks on myself to keep myself safe, right? So sometimes I would be the tough guy. Some days I would be the tough guy. Some days I would be like, I remember when I was 14, so my parents moved from a smaller city to Moscow, the capital of Russia, and I had to go to a different school. And so in the previous school, I had a very serious heartbreak. So my best friend, with whom I fell in love with, he chose a different girl, because that girl flashed him once and then allowed him to touch her boobs, which I would never do. And so I was heartbroken. I told him that I I loved him. And he said, well, you're my best friend. How can I be in relationship with you? And so I left, wrote, very sobby diaries while on a train, looking in a window, and being all in this like Twilight mood. So I came to Moscow and I decided for myself that I would never allow a boy make friend zone me anymore, And so I thought, okay, so what do I have to do for this? Well, I have to finally be a girl that everybody wants me to be. So I curled my hair, I put on like mini skirts and like pink stuff and like high heels. We used to wear high heels in high school. So I would do that. And of course, that image was perceived very well. So all the guys in the new school were like, what is that over there? Come over here, girl. So that was happening. But inside, I was still that same girl who would like always protect herself in a kind of like a spiky way. So that didn't change me on the inside, right? It was just a role that I was trying to play. So if you ever feel the need to match somebody else's expectations or those stereotypes that were, poured into your head when you were little. So sometimes we're not even aware that it had actually happened, right? We just think, oh, we believe this or we believe that. We don't think about how we came to this belief, right? Where we got it from. So if you ever feel the need to change to the circumstances, there's a fine line between adapting and actually shrinking your authenticity, right? To be agreeable. And we do this because most of us, at least I did it. And it's very hard to admit it. I did it because I was scared that I would not be accepted, right? So it's about our identity and our ability to accept ourselves a certain way, which comes most often from the family, where we are not accepted as we are. We're told like, you have to do this, you have to be this, you cannot do this, you cannot experience these emotions. You have to smile. Why are you not smiling? Why are you upset, right? Or like, why are you crying? You're a man, you should not be crying. Or why are you doing this? A girl shouldn't be doing this. So all this stuff is just limiting beliefs, right? And if we become conscious about it, if we ask ourselves about our feelings, about our thoughts, right? Like, how am I feeling right now? Or that person said this and I feel uncomfortable. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? What am I actually feeling? Oh, I feel like it's hard to breathe for me. Right? Or I'm feeling that I'm shrinking, or my shoulders go up, right? So all this stuff, I don't know, for my generation, I'm a millennial. So for our generation, it's a big breakthrough to start going into therapy. I know it's very different for your generation, which is amazing. I think that is amazing. And the fact that you guys understand so many things so early in life is just a blessing. So that will help you a lot. But I know that in my generation, especially for like men in the countries that we're from, it's like shame to go into therapy. Like, well, what's wrong with you that you got to go into therapy? Like, are you tartan or whatever, So I feel like that's a great help to help us be a little more conscious about the things that we were made to believe, right? And about these stereotypes about men and women and what they should and should not be, And that's very important for you, first of all, personally. Because as I said, it's all about the balance of energies, masculine and feminine. And that will eventually help you in your relationships, right? And even in same gender couples, it's still the roles that we play based on the energy, right? So some people have naturally more masculine energy, right? And they play the masculine role in their relationship, and some people have more feminine energy, right? So that's not about genders. It's just about the energies. And it's very interesting how my husband and I came to actually tweaking this balance. And I think this is what's important as well, because there's one step in realizing, okay, so I am this, right? So let's say I'll be talking about myself. At some point I realized that I'm naturally this like fiery, stubborn, active, energetic woman, right? And I thought that was it. That was me. And I was like, okay, I have to learn to accept myself as I am, blah, 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 all that work, self-love, everything that we hear nowadays, right? What we have to do to love ourselves more, to accept our bodies and all that. That was, by the way, another thing, like a woman should not look like you because you're too fat. So I was always told I was too fat. And I was always told by my parents that I needed to lose weight. And I see that happening still in Russia and the former CIS countries, where men, so get this, on dating apps, they literally put in, I want a woman less than 55 kilos. What's 55 kilos? It's like maybe 110 pounds or something like that, or like 100 pounds. So basically a kilo is almost 2 pounds. I think 2 pounds is 900 grams. So a kilo is a little more. It's 1,000 grams, right? So you get the idea, right? And recently I thought, and I think I talked about it with one of my very good friends, why do they need a small, almost like fragile woman? Because it's easy to control her. Because a woman like me, if she's abused, especially physically, she's gonna give him a hard time, right? Like, try to abuse me, I'm gonna abuse you back right away, right? But if a woman is small and she doesn't have a lot of physical strength, it is very easy for a man to be controlling over her. And that's why all of those men want a small woman. They want to control her physically and make sure that she's not a threat. If a woman like me is a threat for them, right? Because they never came to their true masculinity. They think they're men, but they're not men. They are immature boys who never overcame their fears, And it's kind of like partially not their fault, because they didn't have a choice to be different. But still, it's the unconscious choice that matters, right? So the idea is to understand what you are and then see what of this whole ensemble of what you are is conditioning and trauma in a lot of cases, right? And what is actually you. Like the you that you've never known. And it's also fascinating to me to see how, I was a huge fan of like Tony Robbins and all the motivational speakers. And I did the Tony Robbins' event and a lot of other people with like marathons, and like trying to achieve something, visualizations, all that stuff I've done. And what was really interesting to me is, let me get back on that train of thought. So the energies, I was talking about the energies. Yes. So what they were trying to sell is that we need to be a better version of ourselves, right? You guys heard that expression? Right? Like, I'm trying to be a better version of myself, or I'm trying to be better, right? But the thing is, the actual true self, for many of us, we've never known it, because we were never given a chance to be safe and fully accepted in what we are, right? There was always more or less of this conditioning. So it's a very interesting journey to discover that self without the conditioning, which still never kind of like goes away because you already built that identity, right? So as I said, like if I need to be a little more masculine, if I need to take care of things, if I need to be pushy, I can do that. But do I need to be like this all the time? No. It's like the roles we play, right? So today you're a student, you go to lectures, right? You listen to people. The next day, let's say you're talking to your little sister and you take on a different role, right? So that still happens within our lives. So the same thing happens with our identity. So, but as I said, there's a fine line between playing a role that someone wants you to play or playing a role because you choose to do it consciously. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah, so another thing that I wanted to touch upon in this talk is, so I started talking about my relationship with my husband, and both he and I had a very hard time accepting the fact that we're a grown woman and a grown man. Which I know it may sound weird, but to be honest with you, for me, just the word woman, I never liked it. I had a hard time saying I was a woman. And when my husband would say, oh, like, look at this woman, he was trying to like, flirt with me. And he was like, oh, look at this hot woman. I'm like, I'm not a woman, I'm a girl. And I would be like scared, or sometimes when I would tell him like, hey, like, why don't you go and treat this like a man? And like, he would literally cringe. He's like, because of those stereotypes in our heads. And so I started working with it. And I was the first of the two of us to go into therapy. I just couldn't handle the reality anymore at that moment. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, well, I really have a problem accepting the fact that I'm a woman. And that word just by itself has a negative connotation to me in Russian. In English, it's kind of a little better, especially like seeing how the word is treated by women. That helped me a lot to build my confidence into like accepting the fact that I am in fact a woman. But I was like, nah, I'm a girl. And then I'm like, dude, like I'm 30 now, I'm turning 37 in 11 days. But it was like 3 years ago. I was like, well, I'm 34, 35. I am in fact not a girl anymore. I'm a woman. So it's time to accept that. And so I started thinking, of course, why is there such a problem for me? Why was I never aware of this fact that I can't accept the fact that I'm a woman? Because of this damn conditioning that I received as a young girl, when my mom was scared of growing older. Because that literally meant losing your value as a human being, as an actress. She was an actress, so for her it meant losing her value, professional value, And then for my husband, who had a hard time accepting that he was in fact already a man, it was because he always thought and he always felt unconsciously that with the word man comes a lot of responsibility. And he was not ready for that responsibility. He was trying to get away from it because it felt unbearable to him. And later he went into therapy and he learned, and we talked about this, and we realized that he had a pattern in his family where men had to become men and take care of the family when they were still not ready. And that's why in 2023, I went on a spiritual path looking for answers. And so I attended an indigenous elders gathering in California. So there were a lot of people, a lot of elders from many indigenous tribes, both from North America, from South America, the tribes that I never knew still existed, like Inca, Maya. They still live, they still carry on the traditions of their families, of their ancestors. And so a lot of this wisdom about energies actually does come from learning from them and seeing how masculine and feminine interact in society, because it's one thing to talk about it theoretically, right? And then the other thing is to actually see how indigenous men treat their women. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, you guys. So here's an example. There's this tribe. It's called the Tiyuna tribe. The fascinating detail about this tribe is that it has never been colonized. So they live, so if you guys imagine the map of South America, where Colombia is, where there's this, so the Caribbean Sea, and then there's Colombia and Venezuela. And in that area, there's the so-called Linea Negra. And it's basically the indigenous land, and people, sometimes they close it and nobody's allowed in, and it's now guarded by the government, and the government respects the laws of the tribes. So those tribes were never colonized because apparently, from what I read, when the conquistadors came, they saw the part, there's like a little peninsula on the part of land. And so they saw that land and it looked like a desert. And they were like, man, there's nothing really there. Why do we go there? It's probably like an island or whatever. And so they passed and they went further north to like Haiti, Tahiti, those islands, right? The Dominican Republic and all that. But so they never landed there. And so these tribes kept going during all these years. And they're like this tall, amazing people, speak Spanish as a second language. And they have their own native language, obviously. And basically their whole tribe is like, they're always on spiritual path. They have these spiritual leaders. And I got so fascinated with them. I went to Colombia and I lived with them in the jungle because they live in this jungle. They call it the green hell because the jungle is so dense that to go through, you have to like cut through every foot of the walkway. And that's where they discovered the lost city of the Tiyuna. If you guys are interested, you can look it up. There was like a whole bunch of like gold that they discovered, and you know how it is nowadays. A lot of that gold was taken away, and so now they're working hard to get it back. Anyway, I saw how they interact. So they're women like this tall, right? Small hands are, I don't know, like babies' hands. And so the women, quiet, they move like this. And they sit down. And they sit, not a word. And the men organize all the workshops and rituals and ceremonies. They speak, they're also very deliberate, very slow, none of this Western rushing, right? Very slow, very calm, never raising their voices. So the moment that really like imprinted in my memory, we were doing this ritual. They called it pagamentos, which is payments. So we do payments, energetical payments to the land or to different spirits that they believe in, because the humanity had taken a lot from the land, right? And when they came to California, they said, we were planning to do this pagamento payment, but we're going to do a different one because we feel that the earth here lost so much. We feel the emptiness under the ground, and there's a lot of gold has been taken. So you see, in California, this phrase can actually be meaning a lot of things, right? Because you know, California, they extracted a lot of gold, but there's also black gold, oil, that they're still, pumping out of the ground, right? So anyway, we were getting ready to do this ritual for the earth. And there were a lot of people, obviously. It was like a big, not festival, but big event. And so the women are sitting there and they're like knitting. making like purses and stuff. I have one of these purses with me. It's actually it's over there. It's made by the Tiuna people. So they're doing this knitting, saying nothing. All the spiritual leaders, they're called the mamos, the men, they're running around, organizing people, putting them in a circle, and they're saying, okay, we're not going to do everybody just stay there. We're going to take certain people to do the ritual because we don't have enough room. And then the women, there's 2 women, they're called the zagas, the spiritual leaders. Not saying a word. She just raised her finger. 2 of the male leaders came to her. She said something into their ears. The Zaga is saying we can't allow the people to not take part. Everybody's going to participate. Can you see how it's happening? The men they know how to do everything. They're spiritual leaders. They're organizing everything. But if something goes wrong, they are the one to silently hold the space. And that's the purpose and the meaning of the feminine energy. We hold the space, and men lead the way. They form the energy and they take it into a shape and they lead it. So if there's no movement, if there's no masculine energy, it's just the space. Nothing is happening. But if there's no space, the energy cannot move. So the thing is, masculine and feminine energy are not the forces to compete with each other. And that's what we see nowadays. And that's what I lived through as a woman. I was competing with men. I came into the men's world and I was trying to prove them that I'm worthy, that I'm better than them as a woman, right? And that's what we see in the political arena today. Do the women that we see actually translate the feminine energy? No, they try to be women in the men's world. And that's why it's unsuccessful. In my opinion, you guys may not agree with me. But that's, for example, why I looked at Kamala Harris, and I respect her as a woman. I respect her as a smart person, as an individuality. But she didn't speak feminine energy to me. She spoke masculine energy. That's why, to me personally, it didn't connect, even though I agree with her. But I want to connect to a fellow woman with my heart. I want to see that she has the empathy, that she has the heart to hold the space. You know what I mean? And that is extremely important because I see men and women competing with each other all the time. And that goes into like, women are talking about their rights, and then men are offended, right? Or men are talking about their rights and they feel that they might be offended by what's happening. But you have to understand that there's nothing to fight about. One cannot exist without the other. And the same in a relationship, right? When men and women are starting to discuss like, oh, I did this, I did work, and I did with the kids. It doesn't work that way. It's not about who did what. It's about the things that you can do together because you are different and you cannot exist without each other, right? Like a baby cannot be born without both parents. One gives the space, the other one gives the energy to move. You know what I mean? And that's something that I had to rediscover. And also looking a lot into the indigenous wisdom, I've learned what also fascinated me a lot, and that was told by another elder from Hawaii, how they decided to go to war. And I think it is also very important in the modern world where every other day we had a new war starting. So in Hawaii, in the tribe life, and I think this practice actually is kind of reflected in some other tribes. And I think this is the right way to run the world. So there was a men's council and there was women's council. So for example, if there was a conflict with another tribe, the men would get together and they would decide what they would do about it, right? If they go to war or if they try to find a compromise. And they would take a decision together, not one person together as a council, right? Everybody would have a right to speak, everybody would be heard. And so they would take a decision, and they would take this decision to the Women's Council. You know why? Because if men decided to start a war with another tribe, it's the women who would suffer, because their sons, their brothers, their husbands would die. So that decision was taken to the women, and then the women in their council, not one woman, they would decide if they agree with the men's decision or if they don't agree. So you see how it works? A man is taking decision, and sometimes he can be rushed. He can be driven by anger. He can be driven by revenge, which is all fair and should be validated. But then he takes it to his woman, and with her intuition, with her feeling of space, with her inward look, she can say, I agree with you. We cannot solve this differently other than go to war. Or we think there's a way to talk with this other group or tribe or country, right? We don't want war. It's too hard. We can't survive through it. That's why the women would give their decision, again, as a council, not as one person. Because when it's a council, you can't blame one person for taking the wrong decision. Yeah? And when I heard about that, I was like, that is so smart. That makes so much sense. And I think a lot of these practices that make sense for both women and men, they were taken away from us in this attempt to take the power. And that's what we lived through as Russians when Russia invaded Ukraine, but it didn't happen overnight. We had a dictator who started at power 26 years ago, you guys. Can you imagine that? A person being ahead of the country for 26 years, right? So, well, not actually right. I don't think it's right. I think a lot of the things that are happening in the modern world come from misunderstanding of the balance of energies. And unfortunately for you and I, we get to live through this time with all of its instability. But at the same time, I feel like the beauty is that you guys, as the future generation, you get to decide what to do with it in the future and how to power and how to find that direction in your life, in your internal life with yourself, in your relationship with a partner, in your relationship with your future family, and in the community that you're going to be a part of. So I think, yeah, that would be a nice ending of my monologue. If you guys have any questions or if you want to share your opinions, let's do that. Go ahead. If you guys have any questions, be it about my personal journey or your personal journey, if you have any questions about relationships or inward relationships, feel free to ask. Don't be shy.
How do you know if somebody's energy actually matches yours, or if you're like changing yours to match theirs? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so in my case, unfortunately, I don't always do it consciously. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, unfortunately. Both my parents are narcissists, maybe not fully, but the core is narcissistic. So I was recently diagnosed with complex PTSD from growing up in the narcissistic abuse family. So for me, adapting to someone else's energy is a tactic of survival. And only recently I have learned to be a little more conscious about it. Yeah, but you can tell if you analyze people, and I know it's hard to do, but to me, it just happens naturally, again, as a survival mechanism. But you can kind of see. So basically, if we're talking about feminine and masculine energy, what it is, how to distinguish them. So to me, it's very helpful to look at yin and yang as in nature. And that's something that greatly helped my husband when we were talking about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity and not accepting your male or female role or gender. I told him, look at the nature. You don't perceive day or night as bad or good. Or you don't perceive sun and earth or moon and sun as bad or good. So male energy is about giving or an active action. And feminine energy is about accepting or passive action. Right? So we can also see like day, that would be male energy. Sun, because it gives the heat. The warmth, the energy, the direction, that's always male energy. The acceptance, like the earth, right? It accepts the sun rays or it accepts the rain. And then it transforms the seeds, let's say, right? And the plants grow, right? So that's the classic cycle of receiving energy, right? The yin energy. I'm not going to say masculine to kind of like sever the connection a little, but the yin energy, the earth receives it. There's a space, right? Remember we talked about the space. So she gives the space to the seeds and the seeds grow, right? That's yin energy. That's yang, sun, masculine. It grows, right? So the act of growing. And the earth gives the space. And so she transforms the energy and gives it back in a way, right? And that's what a woman does when she gives birth to a baby, right? So she receives the energy and then she gives it back, right? And there's something new born out of it. So when a person, let's say, is very like passive and they are ready for whatever and they're good to go with whatever you offer them, that's a little too much yin, feminine energy, right? And it's all right if it happens to a man. It doesn't mean anything bad. It's just about the energy. If a person is all like that, right? ADHD, hello. I used to think I have ADHD. It turned out it's just CPTSD. Woo, a lot of letters. Anyway, when it's a lot of anxiety, a lot of movement, that's natural young energy, right? And it can be hard to deal with, or like loud people. You know, I've always been loud. So my husband was always like, why are you so loud, right? That's the extra young energy, extra masculine energy, right? And women, they're not women. They don't, see, I'm full. It's hard to like keep the wording correct to avoid this stereotypical connection, right? So the yin energy, the feminine energy, right? It's passive. It's about acceptance. And if we have this imbalance between accepting and giving, that screws us up pretty hard, unfortunately. So, yep, that's for me, it's a lesson in progress. I'm still learning to find that balance between giving and accepting.
But the question was, how do you match the energy?
How do I match the energy? You don't have to match it. You don't have to match the energy. I feel it's like naturally just naturally balancing. If, let's say, you know how a person like is very active, so you naturally want to be less active with them. I always love this example of two drunk friends. One of them is 100% more drunk than the other. Like if you know that you have to take care of your friend, you somehow have to stay sane, right? Even if you had the same amount to drink, right? But it's always like this. Like there's always this one friend who's like, and same with the energy, right? You can see two friends. One of them is going to be super active, like always, you know, ready for some adventures. And the other one's like, I'm not sure. You know, like Piglet and Winnie the Pooh, Yep. So you always see that balance. So when one person goes more yang, then the other one goes more yin to balance it out. So you can do it within yourself and you can do it in the relationship. If you know you're getting more anxious and you have a way to track that and kind of calm down, then then you can be a little more flexible with that. Being conscious about awareness always helps. I don't know, any more questions, you guys? Do you have any more time, or are we? I don't.
3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh man,
You did it. That's perfectly.
I tried to. Yeah. No more questions. If not, we'll be happy to see you back here at 7 p.m. for the show. And then I'm gonna show you in practice what it means to switch from yin to yang and back. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Them.